Okay, once you have written the title of today's notes, go ahead and open your textbook to page 88. Please do this quickly. Open to page 88. Once I see everybody on page 88, we will continue. Okay, so everybody should be on page 88. Let's look at the title of this lesson, Animals with Backbones. Last week we talked about animals without backbones. What were they called? Victoria? Invertebrates. Invertebrates. Remember, we talked about how a vertebrate was a name for a backbone, vertebrae. And in is a prefix that says whatever comes next, I'm saying it's the opposite. So an invertebrate meant an animal without a backbone. So what do you think an animal with a backbone might be called? Smith?
A vertebrate.
A vertebrate. Let's see if you're correct. Before we get to it, let's look at the look and wonder on page 88. I am going to read the look and wonder. You guys be thinking of your answers to these questions. Elephants are the largest living land animal. The males can weigh as much as 6,800 kilograms, or 15,000 pounds. Nearly all of the really big animals in the world have something in common that helps support their weight. Do you know what it is? Think about it. Do you know what it is? Kingston, what do you think it is? A backbone. Let's see if he's correct. Go ahead and turn to page 89. Remember, your vocabulary notebook should be underneath your textbook so that it is not a distraction. Do not close it. You will need it, and then that is just more time wasted waiting for you to reopen it. Just put it underneath your textbook so we can continue. Yes, Sadie?
Do you page 90?
Yes, I don't know. Page 90. Okay, let's look at page 90, and please read the main idea on that bookmark, Kingston. So remember, everybody should still have their face shields on because we are reading out loud. Everybody find the main idea on that bookmark on the top left of page 90. Please make sure your face shields are on so that we don't have to wait for you to put it on when it's your turn. And Kingston, go ahead.
Main idea.
A little louder.
Vertebrates are animals with backbones. There are 7 classes: amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, plus 3 classes of fish.
So you probably thought, oh, animals are just, they're either a mammal or they're a reptile. That's not actually true. Because you have the invertebrates, which are none of those things. There's insects, arthropods, what else do we talk about? Mollusks, cnidarians, all those things, echinoderms. And now we're learning that there's different classes of mammals too. Of vertebrates too. It's not just mammal or reptile. It could be an amphibian, a reptile, a bird, a mammal, or one of 3 classes of fish. Why do you think there's 3 classes of fish instead of just 1 class of fish? Colin?
Because there's so many fish.
There's so many. Just like with bacteria. We don't just have 1 kingdom of bacteria, we have 2. Ancient bacteria and just regular bacteria. Because there was too many to fit into 1 group, so they broke it down into several groups. Which invertebrate did we read about that did that? Where they broke it down into 3 groups instead of just 1. What was it? Where we're like, oh my gosh, are there really that many of these things? This one thing? Victoria? Nope. What was it? Zari?
Worms.
Worms. Good, because we had what 3 groups of worms, Zari?
Flatworms.
Flatworms?
Roundworms.
Roundworms?
And segmented worms.
And segmented worms. So there was another thing where you're kind of like, huh? Zari, where did you find that information? What page?
On page 84.
On page 84. Not that page. I don't know why you guys are looking at that page. Page 84 has all different kinds of information about the 3 types of worms. Very good. Okay, back to page 90. Kingston, go ahead and start reading. What are vertebrates? Ooh, I see a blue question. Am I going to see the blue question again?
Nope.
Where am I going to see the blue question again? Carla.
On the outline.
On the outline, which we may or may not get to tonight. Okay, Kingston, read that blue question to us.
What are vertebrates?
And keep going, sorry. What are vertebrates? So we know, information in here, probably going to see on our outline. We're on page 90. Keep going.
Did you know that you are part of the same large group as fish, frogs, snakes, birds, and mice? What could you all possibly have in common? Each of these animals have a backbone.
Good. Make sure your finger is following along. So even though you may think, what do I have to do with a fish and a frog and a snake and a bird and a mouse? Well, what do you have to do with a fish and a frog and a snake and a bird and a mouse? Aaron? All of us have backbones. So even though we're very, very different, what's the one thing that we do have in common? Cullen?
Backbone.
A backbone. Okay, thank you, Kingston. Read next. Victoria, loud and slow. Everybody, finger ready to follow along. Victoria, read those first 4 words.
A backbone is what?
A backbone is what? So find a backbone is what and put your finger underneath it, ready to follow along. The best way to do it is to make it your index finger. That is the most comfortable. That is the easiest one to use. Your thumb is kind of awkward because then you have to do this. The rest of your fingers, well then, which one do you use? Your index finger right underneath is the best, with your palm or wrist resting on your book instead of like this, because then also I'm covering up the words, unless I'm like this. Okay, go ahead, Victoria. Make sure your finger's ready to follow along. Go ahead.
A backbone is what makes vertebrates. Different from invertebrates.
Oh, so what's our word? Vertebrates. So number 1 is vertebrates. And Victoria, what is a vertebrate?
It's the opposite of an invertebrate. An invertebrate does not have a backbone, so we obviously know vertebrates have.
Well, what is it? Is it a plant? Is it bacteria? So what should I put?
Animals with backbones.
Good. Vertebrates are animals with backbones. An invertebrate is an animal without a backbone. We know IN before a word makes it mean the opposite thing. So that means a vertebrate means an animal with a backbone. Yes, Cullen.
With, I underline it twice.
Good. Yeah, that'll help you because then you know with is the vertebrate. Without is what? You have without. What is it? Aaron. An invertebrate. Very good. Okay, once you've written that, put your pencil down, put your notebook back underneath your textbook, and then put your finger where we left off. Victoria, where did we leave off? Read the first 4 words.
Backbone is
The backbone is an. When I see everybody's finger ready to follow along, I will let Victoria know. On your desk, please. On your desk. Quickly. Find the backbone is Ann. We're on page 90. I'm waiting for everybody's finger. The backbone is Ann. We're in the middle of that paragraph. Victoria, go ahead.
The backbone is an important part of vertebrates. Endoskeleton.
What's an endoskeleton? What's an endoskeleton? Zari.
A skeleton that's inside of the
Good.
body.
The skeleton that's inside, so the internal support structure. Remember, endoskeleton has the same first two letters as enter, which means come inside. What's the other one? What's the outside support structure called? Michaela? An exoskeleton. How can you remember that exoskeleton means outside of the body? Zadie?
There's a face word exit. So
It has the same first two letters as exit, which means you're going outside. If you're entering, you're coming inside, so endoskeleton means an internal support structure. If you are exiting, you are going outside, so if you are exiting, you are going outside, so an exoskeleton is the outside support structure. Okay, keep going, Victoria. Please put that on my desk. Finger ready to follow along. Stand up. Don't throw it on there.
A backbone allows larger and heavier animals to move about.
Good. So without a backbone, think of all those animals that we learned about that did not have a backbone. Were there any big ones? No. We talked about insects. We know insects are small. I mean, sometimes we have big insects, but even then they're this big. We talked about mollusks, which are small. Octopi can be kind of big, but still not that big. They're this big. We talked about starfish and jellyfish. Are any of those animals particularly very big? No, they're not. But think about all these vertebrates that they've mentioned and animals with backbones. Well, some are small, but some of them are massive, like an elephant on the page before. Elephants are huge. How would they move if they didn't have a backbone? They wouldn't move very well. Okay, keep going. Victoria, everybody finger ready to follow along? Where are we, Victoria?
Some vertebrates.
Some vertebrates. Yes, Miss.
My book doesn't have that.
Oh, yeah, some books are a little bit different. If you were here, I'd trade you out, but unfortunately.
Yeah, same with mine.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay, keep going. Just do your best. Everything, it's mostly the same. There's just a sentence here or there that you guys may not have, or an extra sentence that you guys may have. Okay, keep going.
Some vertebrates, such as birds and mammals, are warm-blooded. Their body temperature does not change much. These animals use energy from food to keep
Chunk it. Try to find where the syllables are.
constant body temperature.
There you go. So what's our next word, Victoria?
Warm-blooded.
Warm-blooded. Warm-blooded means an animal with what? what's important about that little paragraph that comes next, or the rest of the paragraph?
A body temperature that does not change much.
Good. An animal with a body temperature. Remember, temperature is spelled not the way you would think. There's a random in the middle. Temperature. So make sure you spell it correctly. An animal with a body temperature that doesn't change much. Okay, we're probably just going to finish this column. My stomach really hurts. I got to sit down. But
There's a chair.
no, I've still got to be I'm sorry. It's like that, sometimes you get it. It's not like your stomach, it's like the muscles and the bone, like the back. I don't know what it is.
It's like after you run sometimes.
I don't know what it is. Yes, Aaron. Temperature, TEMPERATURE. Maybe we'll get through fish. Okay, Victoria. Oh. No, let's keep going. So, you just read 2 paragraphs, didn't you? Thank you. Well, I will read the next 2. So, we are at fish, amphibians, and reptiles. So find fish, amphibians, and reptiles and put your finger there ready to follow along. When I see everybody's fingers ready to follow along at fish, amphibians, and reptiles, I will continue. When I see everybody's finger ready to follow along at fish, amphibians, and reptiles, Mason, you don't have to close it every time. You can just stick it under. Fish, amphibians, and reptiles. Fish, amphibians, and reptiles are cold-blooded. They cannot control their body temperature. Instead, their body temperature changes with their surroundings. Cold-blooded animals get heat from outside their bodies. So, our next word, number 3, is cold-blooded. That means an animal that cannot control its body temperature. So warm-blooded means an animal who their body temperature stays the same pretty much. I mean, it may go up a few degrees or down a few degrees, but it really doesn't change too much. Cold-blooded are animals that can't control their body temperature. They must get their heat from outside of their bodies. Where do warm-blooded animals get their body heat from? Zadie?
They use energy from food to keep a constant body.
Good. So warm-blooded animals get their body heat from what they eat. They get their energy from the food they eat. The cold-blooded animals can't do that. Where does their body heat come from? Where do cold-blooded animals' body heat come from? Smith?
Their body heat comes from outside their bodies.
Outside their bodies, from their surroundings. So if you've ever been to the zoo and you've been in the that building that has like the snakes and stuff in it, what color are a lot of those lights in those tanks? Victoria?
White or red?
Usually a lot of them are red. Those are called heat lamps. If you've ever been to somebody's house that has a reptile, like a lizard for a pet, they usually have this red light that shines on it. That's called a heat lamp. Why do these reptiles, like lizards and snakes and sometimes turtles, why do they need a heat lamp if you want to keep it as a pet? Cullen?
Because they're probably warm-blooded.
Are they warm-blooded? Ethan?
Cold-blooded.
Because they're cold-blooded, and where does their heat come from? Zadie?
They're surrounded.
Their surroundings. So if you have a reptile, like a lizard or a turtle or something like that as a pet, or a cold-blooded pet, you have to have a heat lamp. Because it's different from a regular light bulb that if you touch it, it's hot, but it's not really hot around it. A heat lamp actually gives off heat. So it has to shine on the animal, and the animal will just kind of lay there. Think about when you see lizards in the summer, where do you see them a lot? Until you get close, at least. Zari?
Near a lamp,
Well, what about if you're outside in the wild?
near the sun.
Specifically where? Zadie?
Like when I see them, they're like on top of rocks.
Very good, on top of rocks. Why do you think a cold-blooded animal might want to be on top of a rock? Victoria?
Because that's where the sun shines. And
That's where the sun shines.
And we are actually.
We are, but that's not where we are. Think about if you've ever touched a rock that's been out in the sun all day in the summer. How does it feel? Or if you walk on the sidewalk in the summer. How does that feel? Colin? Hot. Sometimes you can burn your feet. So why would a cold-blooded animal want to sit on top of a hot rock with the sun shining on it? Mason?
Because it's a cold blood and heat comes from blood.
Good, because it's a cold-blooded animal, and that heat, both from the rock that's been sitting in the sun and the sun shining on top of it, keeps it warm. It's got warm from underneath its body, it's got warm from on top of its body. Okay, everybody, back to page 90. Finger ready to follow along. We are on vertebrates are grouped. Find vertebrates are grouped. And we're going to finish this last little bit. When I see everybody's finger on vertebrates are grouped on page 90. We're not on page 91 yet. We're on page 90. When I see everybody's finger on the phrase vertebrates are grouped, I will continue. Carla, where's your finger? I'm sure your finger needs to be underneath. That's the best way to follow along. This is not. Because look, doesn't this look uncomfortable? This is what I see some of you doing. It just looks uncomfortable.
I feel like you're going to break your
This is just a very comfortable way to make sure that you know exactly where we are. Okay. Vertebrates are grouped into 7 classes. These are jawless fish, cartilaginous fish, bony fish. Oh, there's the 3 groups of fish. Amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Which one are we a part of? Class.
Mammals.
Good. Okay, very good. That's all we're going to do for today. We will finish the rest tomorrow. Let's look at this fish, though, at the bottom of page 90. Can you find its backbone? Point to its backbone. I'll come around and make sure you're correct. Good job. You all found it. Girls at home, I can't really see where you're pointing, but that's okay. Oh, I do. Okay, good. Very good. Carla, I didn't see you point, but we got to move on now. Very good. It's that line running right through the middle of its body. Now, you may be thinking, why is it not that one on the top? None of you did, but maybe you are. Well, think of where our backbone is. It's on the back of our body. But a fish is more, like if you look at a fish from above, it's pretty narrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a fish halfway through their body is like if we're looking at it from the side. This is halfway through their body. Because if we look at a fish from above, it looks like that. So it's not along their back because they work differently than we do. Okay, yes, Cullen, quickly.
One time I caught a fish and we cut it open and I could see the backbone and I got very scared.
Yes. Sometimes if you go to the beach or a lake, you may find a fish that died a while ago and you may actually see just a fish skeleton just laying there. Yes.
But then when you pull the fish like this, not like this, like this,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much doesn't have symmetry at all.
It depends on which way you fold it, but it's the same way with us. If I fold myself like this, do I have much symmetry? No, but what if I took myself and I folded it like this way? Do I have symmetry there? Yes. So all animals with symmetry, it really depends on where you fold it. But it's the same with the shape with symmetry. If I take a star, oops, that's a terrible star, whatever, and I fold it this way, is there symmetry? No. But if I take a star, better, and fold it that way, is there symmetry? Yes. Now, just because I can't fold it this way, does that mean that there's no symmetry? No. As long as you can fold it somewhere, and it's the same or almost the same on each side, then that animal does have symmetry. Okay, go ahead and put your science books away. We will finish that lesson tomorrow. Just because we're done does not mean that you can do whatever you want. You can start talking and making noises or anything like that. Hands down, please.